Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Let me know in the comments below. Hi, I'm Chevee and I'm a reformed software programmer. You know what? I really don't like talking about programming here because I think that programming is a very boring subject unless you're really into it. And it makes for some really confusing conversation, which I've always wanted to make these videos as relatable as possible to, here's a 40-year-old dad, but programming has literally been the only thing on my mind for quite a while now. This project it's been a lot. And I have done so much professional learning in the past month, just dorking on this project, that it's unbelievable. I've learned more about my profession than I have, the last 40 years of my life. So it's been really amazing. And I'm here to tell you that I have given in. I have come to my senses and I have begun the process of converting my converting not all of the code, but the code that makes sense I am converting to objects, to classes. And it's been something that I've fought from the beginning because I felt like there wasn't a whole lot of benefit versus there wasn't a whole lot of benefit. The cost benefit was not worth it. Like, it wasn't worth my time to set up all these classes because I can do some magic with PHP that I guess people who program in a very strict class-oriented environment just don't see because they don't have those tools available to them. Well, I have tools available to me in PHP that makes working with arrays really simple. And so I was going to try to stick to my guns. But I have come to my senses, if for no other reason than auto-loading classes is magic. I don't have to worry about how to, requiring and including a bunch of files, and just function naming. Like, I can share functions. I can have 100 classes with the same function name and it's fine. Like, that way I don't have to try to remember what I'm doing, what I'm calling. If every piece of my game has a sentence that's associated with it that's written to the screen when you interact with that object, I don't have to have a new function name for that new object because I already have display functions for all the other ones, and PHP only allows one function at a time and whatever. Putting all that inside of classes means I don't need to think about all that stuff. It just frees up a lot of space. So it's been really freeing. I'm actually enjoying the process. The funny part is, when I started this, I had used object-oriented principles to build my code, just not wrapped in an object. So I was using getters and setters to update and manipulate an array of data, and I was using a constructor to build out items. And when in the beginning I had split my item creation into weapons, shields, armor. It was these very distinct, but they were largely similar. And so in my head, I decided to compact all of them into one function, one big function that took care of all of the cases. It took care of, if this is a weapon, we're going to do this and that and this and that and this and that, because I thought that was less code duplication. And now what I'm doing is splitting that back out into individual units because it's just better. It's just better to have the ability to manipulate one thing without touching everything else. It's much better to have it all decoupled. It's more code. It's more lines of code. There is a significant amount of code duplication doing it this way, but it's just much easier to follow. And I think that's the benefit that I'll most appreciate, in the future, considering, if this project continues, I'll eventually get to a point where I'm thankful that I wrote some easy to follow code, because if you've ever gone back and looked at old old code. It's I'm even confused looking at some of my older stuff that I wrote last week. So it's happening. The code conversion is happening. It's going to take some time. I'm still working through how I'm going to do all of this in my head. I still want to use some arrays for some magic, and I think I'm going to stick to my guns on that and fight tooth and nail, because I don't think it's confusing. I don't think it's and it's much simpler to use that way. But I'm writing objects, I'm writing classes, and I'm having fun doing it. I've learned so very much, and I think that's really the message. Like I told Em earlier, we were talking about how I learn, and she had been telling me over the last year, like when I started to apply for Java jobs last year, she said, you need to watch this course I watched on object oriented. It'll make everything click. And I tried, but I don't learn that way. I have a very hard time learning a new concept unless I've had a chance to play with it. And so I have tried to read object-oriented books. I've tried to follow object-oriented courses, but they all start from the idea that I'm going to show you code and then we'll get to how that code works later. And I cannot learn that way. I can't. I'm much better off, and this is a prime example. I've just been trying. Like, let's figure out how to make a class and patch it together and make a child class and patch that together, and then let's go read up on classes. And once I do it in that reverse way, like the fumbling through it way, and then go read, everything clicks. Oh, that makes me, oh, I can, oh. And I've been having a blast doing that. I've been working through that clean code book. I've read parts of that book 3 times already, just because they're so, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. It's such a good book. So I think the lesson for, I've learned a lot about how I learned this week, and I know that a lot of my frustrations with learning new concepts like this is the way it's presented. And now I see it. I see it happening in my head, and I don't know that I've ever had that revelation before. I don't know that I've ever thought about how I learn and why I am so stubborn to do things my way. I think the real reason is because until I've tried it my way, I can't appreciate the correct way. Not saying that objects are the correct way. They are in this case. I'll concede that. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I will see you tomorrow. And no programming talk, I promise. Today's word you should know is benighted. It is an adjective meaning to be lost, ignorant, or unenlightened. The medieval period was a benighted era of superstition. Benighted, B-E-N-I-G-H-T-E-D.